What's up everyone, and so today I'm going to show you how to basically speedrun this really difficult mission, at least what is supposed to be a difficult mission, but I'm going to show you the requisite stratagems as well as where you need to actually go in order to get this done successfully and on solo. So let's jump right into this. So first and foremost, I was sure to land actually right directly in the middle of the orange icon at the pregame menu. That way it's the most efficient and fastest way possible to get in and out of this mission. The thing about this mission is it's more about just getting there quicker than the bugs, because essentially the bugs will never stop spawning and you just have to try to get to the battery and activate them before a lot of the bug breaches happen. Not only that, but a lot of the tools I'm using or the stratagems are very passive, kind of, instead of being very active, such as the gas, such as electricity or the stun, as well as the mortar that also stuns, including the mines. The mines actually I'm using are the flammable mines. You see here I went directly to the right, and I made sure to go ahead and start the actual button all at the same time, try to dispose of those breaches as soon as they happen, while also throwing back behind me the sentry that basically stuns a lot of the bugs. And being that this is Helldive difficulty, there will be some crazy deaths in this video, as well as some really questionable, catapults from being hit. But I digress. So as you see here, I was able to spawn back, and when it spawned back, at least gave me a little bit of a bird's eye view as to what is damaging the batteries and as to what I could do, as well as with my other stratagems. So here it kind of was damage control, because I was already past a certain point before it became a little bit of the kind of worrisome status, like when it turns yellow, and then obviously when it turns red. But pretty much if you're about 70% and it's not really being damaged, then you're pretty much scotch-free when it comes to the rest of the health of the battery. But until I see that it's at least past that threshold, I will not leave this, because I know that more could actually spawn and essentially turn this right side down, basically. You see here, it's just still trying to just do as much damage control as I can before I move on to the next one behind me. I do say this was actually a pretty close call, especially towards the very end of this one, because a lot of these guys out of nowhere just started spraying anything and everything at it, not to mention the bile titans that were also spawning right behind it. But I managed to survive this battery, so the next one was actually uphill from here. But as you see, being there for that certain amount of time and calling in my stratagems as early as I did, this would allow them to enough to refresh by the time I'd get to the next battery. The reason I chose this one to go next is because a lot of the actual bugs that were still on the second battery or the first battery will come over to the second battery in the short amount of time, which then allows me to at least use a lot of my stratagems on those and catch them in between. So as you see, after I start this actual battery, then I'm throwing a lot of my stratagems over that way where a lot of those bugs are coming from when it comes to the first battery. Now, whether it be the gas or whether it be the stun, either one works just fine. But the ones that are actually starting to breach, I make sure to actually throw mines in that vicinity, because to me, those are the ones that really like to landslide over and really like to take, a very overwhelming amount of bugs. I would say use a lot of the orbital strikes on the actual bile titans, but they're actually not really useful, especially on Helldive and after the update, because it takes not one but typically 2 to 3 orbital strikes to take down a bile titan. So why use 1 or 2 orbital strikes on one bile titan when you can actually also use it on these breaches, which can take out multiples and essentially save you a few seconds when it comes to the batteries, because in this actual mission, every second literally counts. And then now we're headed over to the very last battery while going around all of these, because the percentage pretty much looks pretty good on the health. But the key to avoid a lot of the bugs while they're trying to run at you is to bob and weave left and right pretty quickly, because that kind of moves the hitbox around so they can't really attach onto you, unless you're hit by a stalker when it staggers your player and you're kind of just in the midst. So you just have to dive and stem, essentially. But as we're headed over to this very last battery, I really try to make sure that on the left side, I have that pretty much covered, because that's where a lot of these bugs coming from the second battery are going to run and essentially spawn through. So pretty much placing the mines here, as well as putting 2 or 3 stun kill streaks or stratagems, will pretty much try to save the day. I noticed, really to the right side, there's not going to be much, because a lot of the ones that have spawned are pretty much going to be coming from behind me, because, they go after the person that's playing, which is just me. So we're starting this battery up, and they're making sure to throw these mines, as well as throw that mortar away from all of those, because the mortars will essentially be a one hit by any and all bugs, which is kind of insane, even though that's just the way this mode works. But as you see, a lot of those are pretty much being slowed down, while the right side, there's really not any coming out. So it's pretty much relax and chill until obviously a lot of the bugs start to go through all the kill streaks and the stun wears off and the mortar runs out of rockets. But right now it's pretty much a breeze.
Mag's empty.
And the effectiveness of these actually does last a pretty good bit. So it lasts a good about 5 to 6 seconds, honestly, which is just enough time for you to actually get rid of all the bugs in that place, and then also throw another stratagem such as the stun on the other side to slow those down. So at the same time, when you're working on the gas and you're throwing in the stun, you're also making sure to gun down anything that's kind of close, while also dodging these bile mortars. These rocket pods are also very effective for getting rid of the bile spewers, which is the fat cow sounding ones, because the cow sounding ones actually do a pretty good bit of damage when they do spit on that. Not nearly as much obviously as the bile titans, but enough to actually cause enough damage to really take it down a good 10 to 15%. So as you see here, the bile mortars are pretty insane, but we did actually manage to complete the third and final battery back to back to back. Now the thing about this mode is that is key, honestly, is just strategy and timing, because the earlier and the quicker you get it all off, the better, because when you first spawn, it takes about a good 10 to 15 seconds for the actual breaches to happen, because the bugs will not know you're there. This is especially helpful if you land close to the actual button, which would be in the top center of the actual logo when you do pick your landing spot. But this mode is actually pretty fun once you do understand the ins and outs of it, but obviously no by any means whatsoever is this an easy mode. I mean, obviously Helldive will always be Helldive, but once you know how to actually use the most effective stratagems and pretty much tackle it in a strategic way, you can pretty much accomplish it pretty simple. But of all the places to extract, this would probably be my least favorite, especially because you're at the very top of this one peak and there's only one way up and one way down. But either way, that will pretty much do it for this. I guess you could call it a guide or a speedrun slash guide. But either way, thank you all for watching, and I sure hope this helps you guys with some strategies, because this is actually a very difficult mission whenever you're doing 4 players, much less trying it solo. But either way, thank you all for watching. I look forward to seeing all of you in the next one.
Deploying non-lethal payload. KIA deploying replacement. Request approved. Reinforcements have been launched.
Point me to the enemy. Freedom marches onward. Joining the fray.
If they could speak, I know our heroes would not have us mourn their loss, but rejoice in their